Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie Megan and this is Weirdo Book Club and this is a discourse video. Are you impressed? Plot twist, I'm actually more than just a dumb bitch talking shit on bad books on the internet. I'm actually a brainiac. Get in, losers, we're going ruminating. So I've been thinking, and I know for some, that is a very dangerous thing to do. Scary, the horror. However, I'm one of those crazies that thinks that using your noggin is a great thing, especially in this current economic, political climate we found ourselves in. Some of these thoughts, I just need to get them out, you know? So bear with me as I try to make this somewhat of a cohesive video where we talk about my content, what it is and what it definitely shouldn't be used for, books, media, and the art of taking your time in a world that refuses to slow down. I know, she sounds so smart. I'm really not that smart. I just think I pay attention and I try to think. It's not, I want to say it's not that hard, but it really does seem like some people struggle with it. But this is not a roast video, so let me chill. So for those of you who don't know, I mainly review dark romance books on this channel. And my goal behind doing this was to find the particular flavor of dark romance that appealed to me. And sadly, most of my reviews on this channel are negative reviews of popular dark romance books. This is not because I'm a prude. It's not because I'm a conservative nut job who thinks that this genre and the people who enjoy it deserve to be thrown in the garbage or banned or whatever. It's actually the opposite. I like this genre. In theory, not so much in practice, at least at this point in time. When I first heard whisperings about this genre, it very much appealed to me. I always seek out really dark things in my media, film, book, anything. I like the darker stuff. I'm weird. I like darker things. I like kinky stuff. And in my youth, I had this whole like, oh, you don't like that book? Is it too much for you? Kind of shit. Okay. But this beautiful thing happened to me and I grew out of that. It doesn't seem like a lot of other people have, but I most certainly have. Talk about character development. And all of this is said, not in a, I'm not like other girls kind of a way. I'm simply introducing myself to you. Hello. I'm Natalie Megan. So anyway, when I started exploring this genre, I was looking for, or I had these expectations, right? I was expecting like maybe a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing, or, you know, some decently depicted BDSM kink stuff. And I don't think that was asking for too much. However, that's not what was awaiting me within the pages of these novels. No. What I found instead was just conventionally attractive men perpetuating brutal crimes on the women that were supposed to eventually ride off into the sunset with these hotties, happily ever after riding shotgun with their abusers. And not only that, but then the books also had the audacity to be poorly written with plot holes everywhere and edited. Were they edited? I mean, it's anybody's guess, really. Now, less petty folks would have been like, you know, this genre must just not be for me and thrown in the towel. But I'm not less petty folks. So I kept at it and I started taking you along with me, which you seem to enjoy. The thing about my reviews, though, is like when I go into them, I try to approach things humorously, yes, but I also want to be mindful and look at everything from different angles. For better or worse, I discuss the plot, the characterization, the editing, if there was any, along with like misrepresentation of kinks, inaccurate or absent altogether lists of trigger and content warnings, the poor depictions of mental illness, the romanticization of mental illness or abuse or the patterns of abuse, the after effects that manifest in survivors of things like this, and round I go. I'm not trying to just jab at the seemingly low-hanging fruit of the genre. I just think it's important to touch on things that are so popular and point out like maybe some missteps that are happening in it so that we can make it better for everybody. They enjoy it so much. Don't you want to give them something good to eat? I don't know. And the potential to do harm only serves to harm the author's audiences or the people who enjoy this genre. So I really don't understand why proper measures aren't taken when it comes to like trigger warnings and stuff. I don't feel like it's a huge ask for me to expect you to at least give me some inclination of what I'm about to be involved in, because a dark romance novel has a different set of expectations than just a splatterpunk extreme horror novel, right? Like I know that when I pick up an extreme horror novel, gruesome, gratuitous violence is going to to be present. And like I said, I like darker things, so it's not a problem usually. But with a dark romance, the romance aspect of it really sets the scene for something entirely different altogether. Like, your intention with a dark romance, in my mind, is to titillate me and to make me fall for the baddie. You're not just trying to traumatize me with brutal violence. And yet I still think that I am wrong. Of the things that have crossed my desk, it doesn't really seem like a lot of thought is given to any of this stuff. It's just a who can disturb their audience more pissing contest that I really don't get. This goes back to a video that I've done in the past about like why it's important to market your book properly. The video that I touched on this the most was Mean One by Absent. This is a dark erotic horror parody of The Grinch. And you can go back and watch that to get like all of my thoughts on how erotic horror versus dark romance denotes very different things for me as a reader, but I won't rehash it here. We can do a whole video on that in the future if you want me to, but let me try to stay on track. God, it is so difficult for me. I think the trigger warnings conversation can bleed into another area of this whole thing that I want to discuss, which was like slowing down and being thoughtful in what you're doing. Books are really powerful. Books are important. I think that if they weren't, there wouldn't be so many people trying to ban them. However, instead of requesting that the books that I cover on this channel be banned, I don't want that. I'm simply requesting authors to try a little harder and take a little more time when they are writing these things. I really don't understand why it's a bad thing or a negative thing for me to be asking for you to care about your work as much as I care about it. I shouldn't care about your work more than you do. I shouldn't care about your audience more than you do. I have an audience now, which is wild. I don't think people were supposed to be perceived in such a way. But since I do have the audience that I have, I try to navigate that responsibly as best I can. I know that I cannot appeal to everyone and meet everyone's need because I'm just one little silly bitch from Tennessee, but I do try. And one of the reasons that I do that is because I feel like I have a responsibility to you. You have decided that you like my content. I'm honored by that, but I'm also humbled and afraid of it because I want to make sure that I am doing things responsibly here. So I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but we're going to bring it back around. I want to note something that I've noticed recently in my comments, and it's not extreme by any means. I just did want to make a note of it because I've seen it pop up a little bit more lately, and I want to put a stop to it right now before it gets any more out of control. And I can only do so much. Y'all comment a lot. So I want to be clear that my reviews and my comment sections under said reviews, even the negative reviews, are not meant to be sounding boards for you to make assumptions on these authors' characters, okay? Recently in the Where's Molly video, I saw someone saying that they bet that H.D. Carlton's like super conservative. Conclusions can be made from things that continue to pop up through the books, but I've never met this person. I do not know this person, so I have no idea what their political affiliations is, and it's really ignorant and irresponsible to pretend like I do. I will admit that in the past I have made some like jokes towards like directed towards the authors, and so I do want to be a little bit better about not doing that in the future, but I think this is a good step towards that, like putting it on record. I do not know any of these authors. I do not know their character, what they're like in their daily lives. I don't know what charities they might be donating to. I don't know who they voted for, and to act like I do is misleading and stupid on my part. So I want to make sure that I'm conveying to you that my comment section is not a place for you to go on doing that either. We don't know them. What I do know is that these books are all problematic in their own ways, and it is kind of concerning how often some of the things that pop up continue to pop up. But what I also know is that H.D. Carlton participated in this book, which is a collection of short stories or bonus chapters, and all of the money raised in selling this book went to pro-Palestine relief funds. So what am I to do with that information? I don't know. I can only know the little bit about these people that they choose to share with us. So please, please, for the love of God, in hopes of making this space the least toxic we can for the foreseeable future, I'm looking at long game stuff here. Don't use my comments to make assumptions about people's characters. There's no way to possibly know anything about these people other than the terrible books that cross my desk. And then I then tell you, okay? Please don't do that. Okay, let's go back on track. I don't think it's that big of a request to ask authors to properly label things, properly market their books, include trigger warnings and content warnings if applicable, give us a little bit of something in the synopsis that kind of lets us know what we're in for, and also just to take a second, just take a little bit of time with what they're working on before they give it to us. We've all seen the cash grabs, right? The mad dash to get things sent to publishing without even looking back to edit the mistakes or oversights, errors, things like that. The laughable quality of some of the things in the Eras Tour book, I saw that come across my feed a few times. The use of stock images in the super special Target edition of Onyx Storm, which is a big, very popular fantasy romance novel that so many people love and we're so excited about. And those are just two of the many examples that there are that prove my point, which is slowing down can actually be a good thing, especially in a world that wants to keep moving so fast that maybe you don't even have time to really register what's going on. I was talking to Rachel about this the other day. I think her video about all of this will come out before mine, but I was talking to her about, like, you know, the big problem here is that people think that a critique of a thing is a critique of them, and people can't like detach themselves from a thing long enough to realize that, oh, somebody critiquing this thing is not a personal attack on me. But also, we just really need the people who were disappointed by the stuff like the Eras Tour book and the Onyx Storms to realize that not only capitalists don't care about you, first of all, but we also, like, the disappointment stems from, I'm a reader, I'm excited to see your book and support you and get to be excited about your release. I want you to be as excited and involved and plugged in and intentional about your work as I am. It's your work. I am an artist. I've said this before. In a past life, I was an artist. And I know, as an artist and a consumer of art and media in varying forms, I love it. And you can tell when people are excited about what they're doing, what they're giving you, when they've taken time and they're excited about it too. It shows in their work. It shows. Not to get off on another tangent about my art, but like, I feel like I was really hitting the ground running at the beginning of my art career when I started releasing things, shirts, enamel pins, stickers, things like that. I loved doing it. I had so much fun doing it. I was excited when the merch would come in the mail. I would unbox it for everybody. I would do like a 2-for-1 sale. I was just really loving it. And when things weren't done correctly, I talked to my suppliers and I got the problems fixed and then redid it. One year I ordered an entire, like, I think 1,000 Valentine's postcards, and there was a typo. So instead of just being like, oh, well, maybe no one will notice, I, out of my own pocket, ordered 1,000 more with it corrected. I don't have a team of editors on my staff. It's just me. And even still, it's work that I'm putting out. I'm proud of it, and I want it to be something that's worthy of being proud of. And a typo, I just wasn't willing to do that. So I made that choice and I ate the cost. Whatever, fine. Then when the pandemic rolled around, I just became very disenchanted with the whole hustle mindset, which this bleeds into the whole conversation of slowing down, but we'll get back to it. This is so messy. I don't even know if this is going to be good. But when I was in my house trying to homeschool my kids, running a business, my husband working in the living room, all these other things going on, my grandma being put into a home, and I knew that that meant that I wasn't going to get to see her for an unknowable amount of time. And she has Alzheimer's. So like the clock is very important. The time could have, just a lot of stuff. I became incredibly disenchanted with the whole girl bossing nonsense thing that I had been sucked into in the 2010s. It started to show in my work. You could tell because I was missing deadlines. I wasn't shipping things out on time. And it started to show. So me being on both sides of that as a consumer, a reader, an audience member, and someone who is providing something to an audience, a reviewer, a audience member. I know that people can tell when your heart is not in it. People can tell when you are just like cutting costs and corners and prioritizing profit over quality. People can tell. I've said this in reviews in the past. You can tell when an author thinks you're stupid because they continue to repeat and or explain things to you over and over. And so I think that it boils down to like the disappointment that's felt is that you love this series and you have such high hopes for it. We saw it with the It Ends With Us movie too, not to bring that tragedy up, but like you can tell when people, your audience is excited, they want you to be excited too. At the very least, they want an attention to detail because there are people out here who love your stuff, the stuff that that you're working on, and they want a good experience. Part of your job, aside from just coming up with this concept that you're writing about, is to ensure that they're having a good experience. And you have teams of people behind you pushing these books out, and you're not making sure to hire independent artists to make exclusive artwork for your limited edition exclusive release at Target. You're just grabbing a stock image that was so clockable, it was being talked about like the next day after its release. That doesn't really say good things to your audience. And again, this goes back to the thing, like, critiquing the book itself doesn't mean that you're not a fan. It doesn't mean that you're shitting on the people who enjoy it or shitting on it at all. It's just, there is an expectation. Like, I don't know about you, but like, how much was this book? $25? I don't know about you, but $25 is a lot of money. I know it doesn't sound like it to some, but that's like a chunk that I could use to buy myself a really nice dinner or a copay at a doctor's office. $25 is not 3 cents. Okay, $25 is a lot to some people. And so is it outlandish and insane and crazy for someone to expect that the exclusive super duper special edition is good quality? Like, this is aside from writing. We've ventured off into marketing again and quality. But like, all of this goes back into my overarching point, which is it's okay to slow down and take time. Not only would your audience appreciate it, please, they would be happy to wait for an actual thing that you had hands-on in creating, because they're a fan of you and your work. And as somebody who's been an artist, a small business owner, I can tell you, people would rather wait for something good than to be delivered shit every few weeks. And as a consumer, I can say this too. I remember signing up for the Mary-Kate and Ashley Fun Club when I was a kid, okay? And I loved it for all of the 2 months they sent something. I don't know what happened after that. Nothing ever came again. Was it crap? Yeah, it was. But you know what? I was also 11. Does that mean that it was okay to manipulate me and get me to sign up for something that was ultimately just going to get thrown in the garbage when I got it anyway? No. But when you're 11, you don't really know about quality control. You don't really know that somebody could have really given you something that you could have kept for the rest of your life. You are just like, ooh, a book. Ooh, a sticker. That's the 11-year-old thing. But the thing is that we're not 11 anymore. And most of us have come to expect certain quality from things that we're shelling out cash that we now work to make. So the scale is a little different. The whole like viewpoint, the vantage point has shifted. I'm not an Onyx Storm fourth wing person anyway, but if I was, and you told me like, hey guys, I'm going to have to push back the publishing date because we've had some quality issues at the factories and stuff. Fine. It'll just make me more feral for it when it finally comes out. But that goes back into another conversation that we could have in another video about how capitalists don't give a shit about you. They don't. It's unfortunate, but the quicker everybody gets on board with that, I think the better everything will be, because then we'll really understand where our currency and our attention, which is a currency in itself, should be going and shouldn't be going. And also, I just want to note that this is like from a privileged stance, right? Like, I understand that some people can only afford things that come from Shein. That's a bigger conversation than I'm capable of doing. I'm not smart enough for all that. I am a brainiac, but only to a certain extent. I know my lane and I try to stay in it. And like, overarching overconsumption and consumerism on a grand scale of fast fashion is not my lane. I'm not smart enough for all that. But I do understand that there are some people who can only afford certain things from certain places. And so the monopolies that have come about from that, like Amazon, remember when Amazon just sold books? And now it's kind of like shutting down all these other stores because it is the main conglomerate for everything you could ever need. Yeah. Again, I'm not a consumerism podcast. I'm not a capitalist podcast or a show. I'm not. But capitalists don't care about you. They don't. They care about turning a profit and getting the money into their offshore banking accounts as quickly as possible. And listen, I like money too. I don't want to make it at the expense of people who have chosen to give me their hard-earned money. That's probably why I'm not a CEO. I am a Capricorn. We make great leaders. I'm not willing to do all that. No. Anyway, let's pivot back onto track. Please, for the love of God, the trigger warnings conversation. Another thing that I hear a lot in this circular argument of like trigger warnings and stuff is fiction isn't real. This book is made up. Stop whining about it. It can't hurt you, blah, 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 blah. And I am sure of two things when it comes to these kinds of bullshit arguments. One, y'all must be really fun to be around. Just nice, kind, empathetic people who everybody loves to see walk into a room. And two, fiction is capable of causing harm, even if it isn't real. Just because these harmful things are taking place in a fictional world doesn't erase the impact that those things could potentially have on the real world. And it also doesn't mean that those things aren't actually happening in said real world. Badly perpetrating those in a fiction novel that serves no deeper meaning than to just upset you is harmful in continuing stereotypes and misrepresentation, all that stuff. Not to mention the fact that being consistently exposed to such things can lower your tolerance and have an effect on you in a very real way. But hey, that's another conversation for another video about why consuming mass amounts of horror and dark romance and just darker media in general and being like, I don't have triggers, I have infinite tolerance, nothing hurts me, can actually be a negative thing. But that's another video for another time also. We're having so many breakoffs in this. Anyway, let's talk about an example of how this can cause real life harm. Hellraiser. Yes, hi, welcome to the show. Hellraiser is one of my favorite scary movies. I could go into heavy detail, but I'll save it for another time. Hellraiser is awesome, and it's also totally made up. And yet, every single time I watch it, I have nightmares. Why? Well, because fiction is actually powerful and it can affect you in your real life. And when you consume it, you don't get a say in how it chooses to embed itself inside your psyche. Now, I know, I'm 99.99% sure that Pinhead is not real, and that he poses no direct threat to my life whatsoever. However, my subconscious doesn't give a shit about that. It causes me harm. And you know what's so funny is that my anxiety around this stuff and nightmares in general got worse after I was pregnant with both of my children. Pregnancy dreams. They are vivid. And so after I started being affected in such a way, I started to kind of taper off in my consumption of horror movies. And I also have my husband who has no sensitivities to these kinds of things. Well, he has some, but not a lot. And so he will screen them for me before watching. And then he tells me like, oh, well, this is kind of a thing that you might not want to look at, so I'll let you know before it starts. Kind of a thing. I have a buffer. I have bumpers in my lane. Strike every time. But what I noticed in the dialing back of my horror movie consumption is that my nightmares went away. What? Wow. What? What do you mean? Isn't that something? It's almost like the media, fiction or otherwise, that we consume might have a direct effect on us sometimes. Weird. And if I'm consistently reading books that depict toxic, abuse-filled relationships as something to be desired and to titillate, and in the same book is also low-key peddling the idea of he's hot so it's not a problem that he hurts me, the way that I navigate and view relationships in my own life might start to change. Unbeknownst to me, it might have nothing to do, I'm not intentionally choosing to view them differently, it might just start to shapeshift, especially if I started reading these kinds of things at an impressionable age in my life. Now, I know that I've got some gamers out there. Y'all love when I hop on a gaming stream. So let me make this comparison too. So I have this really dumb game on my phone that I've been playing lately. It's kind of a brain off game. It's called Merge Survival. It's super cute. You're in an apocalyptic dystopian future and you have to combine things, merge them so that you can make supplies so that you can survive. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever, fine. There's this glove that I need often. And it's like one of the bigger items. You have to merge a lot of things to get it. Whatever, you know. Brain off game. I play it before I go to sleep. It's not scary. It's not upsetting in any way. It's just like a cozy little merge game set in an apocalyptic world. And so the other day, I'm headed out to get in my car and go pick up my kids from school. And on the table next to my door right there, because my husband had been doing yard work, was a glove that looked oddly similar to the ones in the video game. And for a split second, almost so quick I didn't even notice it, I was like, oh, I needed one of those. For what? For what? What did I need that glove for? I'm not doing the yard work. If I did it, I would definitely hurt myself. Also, I'm lazy. You see what I mean? Like the media that you consume, fiction or not, does tend to bleed in to your real life. And it, like I said, if you're consuming mass amounts of it, your tolerance will lower to some of the problematic things that are in there. And it might start to just kind of change subtly at first the way you move through the world. When I watched 13 Reasons Why, for example, my body didn't care that I was actually watching a paid actress pretend to delete herself from existence, and more paid actors pretended to be devastated upon finding their daughter in the bathtub. My body didn't care that that wasn't real. It still made me feel instantly nauseous. When I read The Wild and encountered the first scene that mirrored my own abuse from my childhood, my PTSD did not give a shit that it was actually a beautiful love story in a fictional world that I was reading, and that it couldn't hurt me, because it did. It did hurt me. And I'm pretty healed. I've been in therapy for years at this point. And that stuff, I went to EMDR. I think that's the order of the letters. I had like intense EMDR sessions to relive the trauma, unpack it, and move on from it. And I still was like, I don't love that this is happening. And it's a romance book where the dad and the daughter live happily ever after. Especially because, why? There was no warning about it. Isn't that something? Now, of course, all these things that I just mentioned are very dark examples of media. Hellraiser is an 80s horror movie. 13 Reasons Why is a book/TV series that deals with teenage mental health and self-unaliving. The Wild is a taboo romance novel about a 40-year-old man falling in love and having sex with his 16-year-old daughter. All of them are fiction. And yet. And you know what? We can go broader if you want. We can take it back to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and how it made everybody start checking behind their shower curtains. Even to this day, I check behind my shower curtain because of that film and how scary it was. It was fiction, though. Or, what's another good example? Jaws. I'm so sorry. I don't get in the ocean, and it's mainly because of Jaws. I'm not getting in there. I don't have any less fun at the beach because I don't get in the water, and I can almost assure you that I will definitely not be attacked by a shark on the beach. But it's fiction, right? It can't hurt me. But see, the thing is, there are actual rare occurrences of shark attacks in real life, right? Yeah. And there's also been home invasions where people have been attacked in bathrooms/showers, right? Yeah. So when you poorly depict gratuitous acts of violence and toxic relationships and abuse in your romance novels, abuse, manipulations, violence, SAR, that actually happens to people in real life, it can affect your tolerance level and what and how you, it's just all connected. And the argument of it being fiction so it can't hurt you is one of the most annoying ones. And I understand that these books, these dark romance books specifically, give people a place to explore darker things, sexier, darker things in a safe way. However, accurate trigger warnings, understanding what you're writing so you can portray it accurately and label and market it properly, are things that I would think you would want to take the time to do so that you do not have a potential to harm your own audience. Because sure, like intent versus impact, right? We could have that conversation. Like, I'm sure that nobody writes these books intending to hurt somebody. I don't think Kay Webster specifically sat down at her little computer and wrote an incest romance with a very specific scene in it that would be a direct hit for me, a torpedo in the water, okay? I know that. However, when you're navigating such topics as these, you have to approach them with a knowledge that you could actually throw somebody's whole fucking day, week, month off by just casually dropping in incest with no warning. I don't even know if this was anything. This might just be a bindery exclusive, and y'all can let me know. My little focus group can let me know if this is good enough to put on public blast. But I've just been thinking about this. I think about this all the time. So we're going to rein it back in to having a responsibility to your audience and how important it is to slow down some. Like I've said to my husband before, I was like, there's going to be like long-term case studies in the future where we discuss the way that it had like a long-term unknown to us at the time effect, that we're scrolling for so much and we see like clips of something like heartwarming and then devastating and then funny and then we're crying again. Like there's going to be something. There's got to be. We were not ever intended to receive information as quickly as we receive it now. It just exploded, And so I think about that all the time. And I try really hard to slow down and be intentional with the things that I'm doing. And like I said, I was an artist before and I was feeding the algorithm machine. That was something else that was in another one of Don't Fret's videos recently. I'm not like, he didn't sponsor this video. Okay. I just need to make that clear. I just have recently been watching a lot of his stuff. And he was talking about like feeding the content algorithm lord so that you can stay relevant. Like the idea of staying relevant and marketing yourself and paying for these ads and stuff, getting verified, all this stuff. They've conditioned us to think that we have to keep going fast. However, I would like to advocate for slowing down. And that's why I really like being here on YouTube, because I've been able to cultivate an audience that I'm not not only like really enjoying getting to know through all of this stuff in my Discord and my bindery and all that stuff, but you can also expect from me that I take my time with things. I am not able to crank out a 2-hour rant review every week. And I think if I tried to, it would just lead to careless mistakes, plot points that I completely missed or misrepresented, and just a shittier experience all around. Back to the thing I said earlier is that I don't think you guys mind having to wait a little longer for me to provide a better review, because you know I'm going to feed you. It's going to be like 2 hours long, and you guys have come to expect at this point that my videos are going to be very thorough, funny, entertaining, informative, mindful, all of those things, because that's what my entire formula has become over time. I've noticed what works, and I've kind of set it up to where you know to expect to have to wait a little bit longer for the big rant reviews. I give you some little videos in between, maybe like this one, who knows, keeping you satisfied in the meantime. This stuff, that the scripts that I write that are 20,000 words, that takes time. And I think that you guys, for the majority, are okay with waiting for those videos. So I'm a great case study to show that it's okay to take your time on something if the final product is going to be better than if you just were cranking things out. Because I could give you a review every week, but it would just be like a little chunk, 15 to 20 minutes, and I wouldn't really get into the nitty gritty of everything. And I think that you guys like it when I do that. And part of being someone with an audience is noticing the kinds of things that work with your audience and trying to figure out a way that you can meet those needs while also not risking burnout yourself. I have burnt out before, and I don't want to do it again. I've always created in some sort of a way. I haven't always had an audience, unless you count my grandmother, who has been my biggest fan since I was born, literally. But like, to have an audience like this, I feel a responsibility, like I said earlier, to not only take my time so that I'm not working myself to death, also so that you can expect good quality things when I finally do give them to you. I don't want to feed a machine. I don't want to pay for ads or to boost my stuff. I don't want to do that. You guys all got here back when I was making shitty videos with horrible quality and terrible sound and pauses left and right and ums and clicks, and you're still here watching me. And so I do think that it's important to take your time on things. If they're important to you, if you care about the work that you're doing, I do think that that's what sets us apart from the mega corporation, conglomerate, lunatic losers that are currently trying to run this country straight to hell, no stops. It is really easy to see like dollar signs and want to go towards them. And I understand that, believe me. I grew up on food stamps and stuff. I understand the value of a dollar, but it's even more important, especially as artists and creatives, to stay true to the reason that we like doing this stuff in the first place. And I think a big part of that is slowing down and pulling back against the current of a world that is just constantly moving so fast. And I know that that probably sounds like an old lady thing to say, like, of course you want to slow down. You have osteoporosis. What is it? Is that the word? What is osteoporosis? What is osteoporosis? Oh, that is the word. Oh my God. Yeah, osteoporosis. I'm an idiot. Okay, that was my first Discourse video. I'm going to say bye now. All the links to anything that you could want are below in the description. I appreciate you spending this time with me, as chaotic and messy and unstructured as it may have been. I feel like my overall points permeated. Thanks again for watching this video. Let me know if you liked it in the comments. We can keep the conversation going if you feel like it. I am a yapper, so I can go for days. Clearly. Love you. You don't have to say it back. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.